Good day, Mike, and thanks so much for joining us at our Ned Group Investments Multi-Manager Insights webinar. Quite a mouthful.
Yeah, great to be with you.
Mike, full disclosure, I started in Nedbank about 5 years ago, and one of my first memories is you were in Cape Town in our auditorium, I think presenting our 2018 financial results, and afterwards a couple of colleagues pulled you aside to ask for a selfie, which I felt it was quite odd to me coming from a small organization before, but I guess speaks to a couple of things. Firstly, the reverence that you've earned during your time here at Nedbank, and secondly, the culture that is prevalent here. So that's something that stood out for me. So I'm curious to know, in your experience, what role has culture played in keeping you at the bank for so long, as well as its role in keeping the talent around you and inspiring that talent to perform?
Look, I think, over 30 years at the bank, 20 years on the board and 14 years in this job, hopefully I've learned a number of things. But one of the things that I learned, and in particular I learned from my predecessor, Tom Boardman, was the absolute foundational importance of culture, values, and institutional strength in long-term competitive advantage for a business. And culture is really the sniff of the place, and what you learn is that in most organizations, culture becomes a reflection of the behaviors of the senior leadership group, and that sort of mirrors into the organization and becomes its culture. And certainly I think it is absolutely vital. It is probably in financial services, which is largely an intellectual capital business, your only sustainable competitive advantage over time is your culture and values, and therefore your ability to both attract and retain talent. Competitive advantage in banking isn't really about all those P's that we learnt about at university: price, place, product, promotion, all of those things. It is about culture, values, and people. So it's absolutely kept me here. I've always loved the culture. I've loved the people that I work with. But at the same time, I think you can all reflect on businesses that that have been unsuccessful. And often that shows up in a large financial loss, an operational loss, something that goes wrong. But many, many times, the root cause of that problem is culture.
And I think I can hear it in your voice. It's probably been quite a nostalgic year for you in many ways. As you said, 30 years of career here. What strikes me is every time you present to staff is you seem like a glass half full kind of chap. And I, for one, am going to miss your messages from Mike, and looking forward to seeing what alliteration Jason comes up with in his messages. But I'm curious to know, what are you going to miss most about Nedbank? And because this is a safe space, feel free to say, what are you going to miss least and you're quite happy to see in the rearview mirror?
Safe space, only with a couple of hundred people listening in. No, what am I going to miss most? I guess I just, the first question you asked me. I'm definitely going to miss the culture, values, and the people that I work with every day. I've absolutely loved, the executive team that I work with, all the leadership teams and Nedbankers that I have the privilege of getting to engage with. I've really loved engaging our clients and customers in the organization. So I love that side of the business. I also, in financial services over 30 years, have also always enjoyed the intellectual stimulation and challenge of financial services. It's an incredibly complicated environment. It's got, huge disparities between, somebody, making a deposit in an ATM on the one hand, or doing an international cross-border currency swap on the other hand, all of which have to be executed seamlessly. So there's a lot to keep you intellectually challenged. So I will certainly miss that. And then I think what I'll also miss is the ability in a large financial services company to make a real difference, both to the company itself, to the staff who work here, but also to the countries that we operate in. And banks really do have that ability to make a real difference to countries and communities. There are very few businesses that you can do that in. what would I miss least? That the one that is going out to the podcast to millions. And not a lot. I've thoroughly enjoyed this job, and it's been an extraordinary privilege. But I'm going to love getting control back of my own diary. My wife and I were laughing last night. Some friends asked us to go and do a walk in the Kruger next week in April. And for the first time in probably 20 years, I could just say yes. I didn't have to say I'm going to wait for the corporate calendar and see whether I'll be able to fit it in or not. So I think getting control of my diary is going to be something that's going to be a fantastic privilege. I'm probably not going to miss, spending many evenings reading thousands and thousands of pages of packs for the various, boards and board subcommittees that we're in. Vitally important that I read all of those things, but it does take up a huge amount of time. I'm probably not going to miss the 24/7 of every single email, every single WhatsApp coming in from staff, clients, IT systems, all of those things. It is a real treadmill that you're dealing with. And also, banks are entities that get accused in this environment of all sorts of things. At heart, banks aren't businesses. Certainly, Nedbank isn't a business that intentionally does things wrong. Of course, from time to time, if you've got 26,000 people, statistically, there are going to be a number of people who do things wrong. But we're a business who then deals with that. But consistently having to try and deal with the press and all of those people trying to explain the bank's position on many things where it feels like you're being accused. When you know that deep down we're a business with great values and integrity is at the heart of that. It sort of feels like people are poking at that a little bit more often than I like.
Thanks, Mike. I'm glad to hear you're getting control back of your diary. I think you mentioned you're going next week in April, but I think you might have meant June.
Sorry, it's next year in April. So that's what I really meant to say. Sorry. That's how far ahead my diary was previously blocked out.
I don't blame you for being that excited for a trip to the Kruger. It sounds absolutely fantastic. You also mentioned your predecessor, Tom Boardman, in your response. We had Clem Sunter join us on a webinar a couple of years ago, and he mentioned sitting in with Tom back in the day, strategizing for Nedbank and coming up with the idea of being the green bank. I don't know if they meant green in the context that referred to it today, but I'm sure Clem will claim that is indeed the case. During your time here at Nedbank, Mike, we've seen the terms coined around being purpose-led as well as using our financial expertise to do good, which suggests an intentional shift away from traditional or purely traditional financial banking to something that embraces sustainability. I'm curious to get your insights on what those initial discussions were like, because it is quite a brave step to make as a bank and moving away from what we've considered to be doing for the past X decades or hundreds of years for that matter.
Well, in fact, if you dig back far enough in Nedbank's history, our involvement with matters green, they go back actually long before Tom's time to Richard Laubscher and previous executives before him. Nedbank's involvement with the Green Trust, our affinity programs, all of those were already putting Nedbank at the forefront of what today has become one of the most important things globally. And in financial services. So we've had great foundations in Nedbank. When people think about the Nedbank brand, generally one of the first things that comes to mind is sustainability. And we are now in a world where in particular sustainable development finance and climate finance are absolutely massive growth opportunities for financial services. So we've been remarkably fortunate as Nedbank to have had our roots in something that is so important, not only for the future of our planet, but also as a growth vector for our business, I think, over multiple years.
And I guess maybe this offers a nice segue into your career beyond Nedbank. So, you're going to be joining the Energy Council as a board member. I'm curious to know how much has your experience at Nedbank fitted you for that position and the value add that you can have in that space. And maybe for the listeners that aren't familiar with the Energy Council, what is it and what are their objectives?
Yeah, so look, I think what's really interesting is, the Energy Council is made up of a number of chief executives of businesses in South Africa, requested to sit on the Energy Council to try and help with the extraordinary energy challenges South Africa have, both shortages of energy on the one hand, but also the just transition of our energy system on the other hand. And I think what all Nedbankers can be really proud of is that the Energy Council didn't want Mike Brown to be a board member of the Energy Council. They wanted the chief executive of Nedbank to be a board member of the Energy Council, given the long history that Nedbank has in sustainability matters, just what we were talking about, but also the market-leading position that we currently have in renewable energy, either government's own renewable energy programs with Eskom as the off-taker, or more recently, the very strong market positioning we've got on all of the new private sector generation programs. So when they asked me to be a board member, it was very definitely on the terms that I will transition that board seat to Jason Quinn during the second half of this year, and that Nedbank in particular will continue to have our voice heard on the Energy Council.
Okay, I see. That's fantastic. As you mentioned, sustainability being at the heart of what we do at Nedbank, and the just energy transition, really essential to South Africa's a lot of the issues, both social and environmental. And I was quite intrigued to see the likes of, Sasol and Eskom on the Energy Council as well, which I think is quite a promising thing. But Mark, before I let you go, I've just come up with 4 quick-fire questions just to keep you on your toes and hopefully entertained. You are a vocal champion of digital first and first in digital, so I thought I would lean into artificial intelligence or co-pilot, as we have here internally. And I asked them, what is Mr. Brown's expertise? And they came back saying, Mr. Brown's expertise spans various areas, including accounting, auditing, large corporates, retail and investment banking, human resources, marketing, business strategy, and strategic planning. A true modern-day polymath, if you will. But I think the glaring question is, Mark, is during your 30 years here at Nedbank, how often or how many times did you win a Top Achievers Award?
I think only once or twice. Once or twice. If I go back, perhaps just a reminder that if you're on the executive committee, you can't win a Top Achievers Award. And I've been on the Exco for 20 years, so I guess I was only in the fight for the first 10.
Well, 2 out of 10 is not too bad, 20% of the time. And now that you come to the end of your tenure, is it true that wealth is your favorite cluster?
Absolutely. Don't tell anybody else.
Okay, right answer. And then penultimate question is, I've heard the rumors, I don't know how true it is, that you're quite an avid golfer. So I took the liberty of going onto the handicap network in South Africa, and you'll be relieved to know that there are 4 Mike Browns and 9 Michael Browns. So I have no idea what your handicap is, but in your future, do you envision a bit more golf with your free calendar that you now have?
Yeah, definitely. If you find me, I should be the 13.6 stroke index at the River Club, which means I'm about a 16 handicap on most courses. I definitely intend to play a lot more golf. I'll share with you my son's summary of my last year at Nedbank. Very pleased to have finished last year. We met all those targets that we set for the end of 2023, and he said, Dad, at least as you played your 18th hole, you didn't 3-putt the 18th green for a double bogey.
I think the golfers listening in would appreciate that. And then last but not least, have you topped up your 2024 tax-free investment with Ned Group Investments?
I'll have to do that just as I leave this call. Thanks for reminding me, although I'm sure that you are not qualified to give advice.
No, most certainly not. But my colleague did divulge that she was on the phone with you for a while, talking you through the process and getting your kids on board as well. So that's all we have time for today, Mike. I think I speak on behalf of Wealth, where I say all the best in the next chapter in your life. And thank you for your service to Nedbank as well. We really appreciate it, and you will be missed.
Thanks, everybody. It has been a most amazing 30 years and an absolute honor and a privilege to be the Chief Executive of Nedbank.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.